right, guys, today's video is about soil testing. I'm going to give out some tips on this, and we'll see if we can try to get a cleaner looking sample by just following a few simple suggestions to help your odds with your soil test to be more accurate. Now, generally, when you're talking about food plots in general, you know, this plot here counts as one type of soil test, but I'm only breaking this up into sections because I want to see what the difference is between section 3, section 4, 2, and 1. I've done different versions of restoring in those areas, and I want to compare soil tests individually in those areas. Yes, it will cost me more money, but that's just part of it. And I am doing the most comprehensive soil test I've ever done here, because the other soil test that was done like more than 10 years ago was more streamlined and basic. It wasn't about soil health so much. It was just about what I needed to put in the soil, and or what my grandfather needed to put in the soil to, you know, increase his hayfield production. Here, I want max nutrition. So there's a few things here we need to do that will help our odds and prevent false readings. Yes, you can get false readings through the wrong equipment and or where you dig. So let's start off with the equipment. I finally went out and bought me a soil tester. I'll go ahead and tell you that this soil tester here, it's a nice probe in the ground. The first time we done the soil test, my grandfather used a shovel and used an old rusty shovel to do a soil test. Well, that's wrong. Do not use rusty equipment. You want something that is like stainless steel, you know, something to prevent any type of metal flake from getting in your samples. Also, the buckets that you use, or whatever item you want to put your soil in temporarily, you need to make sure that is clean as well. If you use laundry detergent at some place to, you know, like those 5-gallon drums of cleaner laundry detergent, those can represent false readings in your potassium or your P and K readings. So we definitely don't want to make that mistake. But if that's all you got, then I would use soap and water only and scrub that bucket out as clean as you can get it, and then use that. So if you've already used something that's dirty or rusted, you're going to have a much higher chance of seeing false readings in your food plot. So for instance, why would I not want to use the rusty shovel? If you do go the route of using a metal shovel that's not got a protective coating on it, you know, it's not like this or something, you're going to get metal flake that's going to break off into that shovel and get into your soil sample. Well, when they go to do that soil test, your shovel is probably going to help raise your iron level. So if you actually do have an iron problem, that shovel can make it look like it's actually adequate or too high, depending on how much rust or flake is in the shovel or how broken down that shovel is. So always make sure you use proper equipment if you can do so. If you can't, if you can't do one of these, I've seen people use like plastic spades, something try to prevent the use of metal. But this right here is perfect, and you can see how deep you go with that channel. Now, here's another thing when it comes to soil testing. In general, if at all possible, the goal is to get 8 inches deep. If you cannot do that, do the best you can. So if they tell you, hey, we need, a good enough amount of soil in this bag to fill up our testing equipment to make sure we get a good reading, Well, how many holes is it going to take? For those of you that have that soft soil where you can just plunge, 8 inches deep, you could probably get away with about 10 bore holes. And that should be adequate for the amount of soil you're pulling out of the ground. If you have hard soil and rocky soil like I do, I think 8 inches is going to be very difficult to achieve. There might be a pocket or two where I could do that, but I highly doubt it. So if I end up going 6 inches deep or 5 inches deep, then I need to do additional bore holes, which means it might take up to 15, 16, or 17, depending on how shallow you go. The shallower you get, the more you need. If you cannot penetrate beyond 2 or 3 inches, you need to find a different spot and just keep going until hopefully you can land somewhere that will get you a deeper reading than just 3 inches. So that right there, just following those guidelines will help you out quite a bit when it comes to getting an accurate reading of your soil. Now, what about the test holes themselves? Is there anything that I should do to improve my odds of being more accurate? There definitely are ways to improve your accuracy. For one instance, because we have 2 different systems going on right here, so I'm going to use the hay field as an example and the food plot. So this road is the dividing line. However, when I spread fertilizer out here, you're talking your P and K levels now. There is a small amount that tends to get slung into maybe the first 3 or 4 feet of this food plot. So generally, when it comes to digging soil samples, I don't want to be on the edge of my food plot. This over here would give me a different reading than this over here, because I've been doing this over here for years as a totally different method than what I'm doing on this part of my property. So it's best to stay away from the edge of your food plot and go more toward the middle. Same thing applies when it comes to digging holes. And if you're up next to woods, or you are in the woods, which the island food plot is going to be very difficult to pull off. If you have a lot of trees around your food plot, so I'm just going to use this open style food plot. If you have trees that butt up to the edge, or they are basically within, let's say, less than 25, 30 feet away from your food plot, do not go anywhere near those tree edges up there and collect soil samples. Like that massive oak, that tree has a monstrous root system that is in my food plot. So I don't want to take soil samples up there that's near that tree. I want to refrain from doing that, and basically my drill holes will be from here over to the corner. And those fruit trees, I don't want to be up there near the edge with those fruit trees. So some of them definitely have roots big enough to reach the food plot. So I'm going to stay somewhere in the middle to lower half of section 1 to stay away from roots. And hopefully the ground will be nice enough to give me a few samples. Same thing on the back side of the food plot. The chestnut trees are plenty big enough to send roots into the food plot now. They have been doing it for years. I would say at least 5 years worth of root growth is in there. So I want to stay away from the edge of that back half. And if you follow those guidelines, it's going to help you out quite a bit in getting a more accurate reading of your soil. So in general, if you're, forget the sections that I've labeled this plot as. Just assume this is one nice plot I want to do soil sampling in. Then I can go here, just wherever, random spot. You can even throw a hat down if you want to make a game out of it, and just sample from wherever the hat lands, or whatever item you want to just kind of toss out there. If you don't want to do that, and you just know as long as I stay somewhere in the middle of this plot or away from the edges, you'll be in good shape. So what I want to do, one of the preps is generally you only need one bucket. And when you're doing your soil test, once you get your soil drilled out of the soil here and put in this bucket, you can break it up, and I'll do a demonstration here in a minute of you could break it up, get the clots busted up, whatever rocks you find, get rid of them. They don't want rocks in there, they want soil. Stay away from organic matter, so you don't want to drill directly into that plant. You might want to pick areas you can clean completely off, and don't use rotting organic matter in your sample. So like right here, I don't want to just take the drill as is and bury down in here. This right here, you need to clean it off, get as much of that out of the way as possible, and then do your bore sample. All right, so real quick here, let's see how forgiving section 4 is going to be. So I've already cleaned that off, and we'll just sample that right there if it'll do it. I feel rocks. And you may have to twist, try to get around those things. Let's see how deep I got. Yeah, that ain't gonna work. But if you want to look at the plug, so there's the soil plug. That right there doesn't have any rocks in it. I see good color, so I think my organic matter right there is going to do pretty darn good. But I had a rock that stopped me from getting down in there. Go figure, right? So I'm going to find another place to dig. But you kind of get the idea of what you want to do here. So hang on tight, and I'll have a part 2 to this and have a bucket, hopefully with some good dirt in it, to demonstrate the next part. Hang on tight, guys. All right, guys. Soil sampling is done for section 4. I wanted to encompass as broad of an area in here as possible. So soil samples were taken about 15 feet away from the edge of the corner, all through here in random areas. And then I went down the dog leg right there, testing. I made sure I got a good even number of holes all the way across here. So that way I can get a good average of what's in there. And generally, when you do food plots, you know, they're encompassed as one big test. So in theory, if that's what you're doing, you can have selected anywhere in here you wanted to get your 10 to 15 samples. Remember, I'm just trying to review my past restoration method and maybe finding out which way's better or which one's got me more P and K or more consistent P and K levels, and checking the acidity in the soil. And there's all kinds of other trace minerals that I'll be looking for as well. So here's our sample bucket. And before I go any further, please forgive my labored breathing, and some of my forgetfulness has gotten worse. And it turns out I actually have some sort of growth in my throat that is cutting off my airway and causing my thyroid to go bonkers. So I am kind of in sorts about my health condition right now, and I think I'll hopefully get that taken care of here pretty soon. But it causes your heart to race, your skin to change. I break out in itching. I mean, it's just been a really rough 6 to 8 months here, and I finally went and got it looked at. So I do have a growth, and it's pressing on my vocal cords as well, and that's why I get that dry, raspy cough in my videos. And there's a lot of times where I have to stop the videos completely, get the coughing out of my system, and then start over. So some of these videos have been taking 10 to 12 takes to get them down right, and a lot of times I'll end up forgetting what I mentioned because I thought maybe it's already been said, and turns out it was in a video that I didn't, that I deleted, and it just gets to be rough sometimes. But I think things will get better here once I go do some more testing. And I got to do the nuclear test this week and see if it's Graves' disease or if it's at least something they can get rid of and hopefully get me back to normal. All right, so enough of that rant. Let's get back to the video at hand here. So we got a few things additional here that we need to do. And just because you've got your samples done, you're not done at this point. So what happens is you get these, now this all depends on your soil type, but you'll typically get these round cylinders from the tube here. So we don't want to send them chunky soil because they have to dry this stuff out when they test it. So you need to break all this up before you send it out. Any worms that you find, you need to take them out, put them back in your plot. Any rocks that you find, like here's a rock right here, we don't need rocks. So if you want to make them happy, remove your rocks. If you don't remove rocks, it's just extra work they have to do your soil test. And the easier you make it on them, the happier they'll be and the happier I'll be. So break all this up, because that way you can find whatever rocks is in here. And then once this is busted up, you may have to go back and do additional drill samples to make sure you got enough soil. So that's one thing you got to be careful of in rocky soil. And let me get down here real quick. I'm fighting the urge to cough right now. So I noticed when I was doing my soil samples, and it was very irritating a few times, trying to actually get something to burrow down deep enough to get something 5 or better on the depth. So I noticed I could see what I have done over the years, and then I dug deeper and got into what was here before, and that was the clay portion of the soil. So right now, see, that's what I've done over the years. That's a totally different soil texture than a lot of this that's in here. Right here, I can feel a big load of clay in here. Right there's your clay. See how much of a different color that is? So that's why you want to get depth in your soil sample, because your roots aren't growing in the first good 2 or 3 inches. They're growing a lot deeper than that. So you need a better profile of what's down below, and this can affect trace mineral readings like sulfur. Sulfur needs to be at all depths in your soil, not just on top. So if soil is getting reduced the deeper you go, then these soil tests will discover that based on your soil average. So that's why you want to get up to 8 inches of depth if possible. And that will cover a pretty good portion of the upper root system. I will tell you this right now, this soil feels so much better than when I had to help my grandfather the last time. It was just matted up, bald, wet clay. Now I can actually feel good soil in there. All right, I think that's, well, I still see a few chunks down in there. There's a rock. We'll get rid of him. I actually thought I did a pretty thorough job of keeping rocks out of here when I sampled, but obviously there's some I'm going to miss. So if you find, broken down rotting material like that in your soil, go ahead and get that out as well. You just want to give them dirt, and that looks pretty good. Yeah, love that. All right, so there is 2 years of soil building that I've done, not counting when I had a clover plot in there for 5 years. So really, you're not doing a lot of soil building with clover plots, but I did do 5 years of clover in there. But that looks pretty darn good. So hopefully my P and K levels will be fine. I know there's going to be some trace mineral issues. I mean, I've already prepared myself for that. I also would like to see how much of acidity has changed because of this extra growth that I'm doing in here. My fall winter crops are often a lot better down here because it's direct sun. Plus I've started using less synthetic fertilizer and more organic style fertilizer. So I'm kind of really interested to see how much of a difference is going to be here when it comes to my acidity number. Also, another good sign, I had multiple worms that got into this probe. I think I probably probed about 10 different worms out of here. There's a rock. Thought I felt one in there. So, yeah, very happy with that. So something like that is typically what you want to send them, and depending on what type of bag they send you or whatever, or the requirements they ask, somebody may have different amounts of soil that they need. Generally, I think it's about 1 quart, roughly about a quart size, or more. It's at least a pint on some of them. It just depends on what type of test you're going for. And I'm doing a full health soil assessment test. I want detail. So doing a standard test of just your P and K and calcium, stuff like that, you got to go deeper than that if you want to do really good food plots for deer, especially if you're more serious about it. But I think that this is going to work out really well. Now, if you've got roots in here, as long as they're small and microscopic looking, stuff like that, don't have to be that picky. Leave those in there, and they could pick up on bacteria numbers because I am doing a soil health assessment, so that will help guide me in that direction, and we'll see where this goes. But that's broken up pretty good. Oh. I lied. Maybe it's not as thorough as I thought it was. We'll fix that here real quick. There's another rock. And they've got a sifter that they can get your rocks out of here with. If you've got a sifter, you're more than welcome to run your soil through there. But I'm not going to go that far. It's not really going to change your readings. That's just more about clearing rocks out. So if you don't want to do that much work, don't worry about it. So shake this up a bit. All the balled up stuff will come to the top. And that's it. There's a rock. There's one more rock. And there's a worm. So I don't want to send them a worm. He's supposed to be here in my soil. All right, guys, so that's pretty much what you do for your soil test. And if you feel like that's not enough soil to fill the bag properly, please go back and add additional test bores. Remember, there is a variance. It's not a set number. And that will help you get a good, proper soil test. Staying away from anything that is not coated in stainless steel. Look at these scratches right here, if it'll show it. See that? If that had been a rusty shovel, how many metal flakes off that shovel would have been in there? Quite a few. So my iron reading would have been a false reading. So by using stainless steel, I'm avoiding that issue. All right, guys. Hope this video finds it informative for you. Hopefully I can get healthy and get back on my feet. And this type of disease or tumor growth, when your thyroid gets out of whack, this affects the ability to stay in heat out here. And last year I noticed I had a really hard time with the hay field. It was the worst I had ever experienced. And that was a warning sign that I should have paid attention to, because I talked about how tired I was in the video, and working in heat with this type of problem can be dangerous. So I need to heed the signs. I don't know if this, what it'll lead into down the road as far as my regular routine of videos. There may come a time where I have to back off if I'm doing tests, especially if it comes back to where I do have a major problem. There's only I'm going to go ahead and tell you, it's only a 5% chance that growth is cancer. I'm a positive person. I say it's 0. I do have a family history of thyroid issues, and I guess mine just waited till I got to after 40 to start messing up with me. But if it does interfere with my videos, I'll try to warn you all about that if I can. Hopefully it won't be something that'll put me down for a long time. I doubt it will. I'll probably bounce right back and keep on going. But I hope you enjoy these videos and that you get a lot of useful information out of them. And hopefully it's helped your food plots and that you'll start to see better deer yourself. You all have a great day.